Start recording. What's up, guys? Hopefully, everyone on here knows who I am. Zap, your Renew Nashville and membership program manager at the Entrepreneur Center. Super excited. One quick update: if you guys have not heard yet, the mayor will be coming to visit us on Monday. I know. So if you would, and also if that doesn't excite you, we're doing free headshots on Monday. You do have to schedule so we can keep these socially distanced. But let me know if you want to be involved in that. I sent out an email yesterday, but not necessarily to all of our membership. But very exciting thing. Anyways, getting into today, I'm super stoked because we have Dan here tuning in from the East Coast. Really, I reached out to Dan because I was like, there's really not anyone in Nashville who is specifically focusing on this space of remote employee engagement, which he is an expert in. Very timely matter. So I'm so stoked to have Dan here and kind of leverage this virtual time and get a speaker from out of town. Anyways, hardest part about Zoom is there's really no applause, but Dan, we really appreciate you being here. We're really stoked. And I'm going to hand things off to you.
Awesome. Well, thanks. Nice to meet all of you. My name's Dan. I'm going to share my screen and we're going to dive right into the fun because it's kind of like a smaller crowd, which I am so excited about. That means we get to be very interactive. So just so you know, you're in the splash zone. So if you have a question you want to shout out, feel free to drop questions into the chat or into or just unmute yourself and we'll just roll with it. I mean, I've done enough of these that like if chaos happens, we just kind of, be chaotic. So my goal is that you're going to get a lot out of this session. So I've got 3 things for you to do right now, because I know, for most of you that are in the Nashville area, it's 1 p.m., which is like the worst time of the day. So what I'm going to ask you to get is...
It's the best time.
Oh gosh, no, it's the trough of the day. That's like the siesta time. I know it. Like 1 o'clock's a rough hour. But do this, get the stuff that you need for this webinar. So maybe that's something to write on or your, digital note-taking device. If you want, grab something to drink. I mean, you can drink whatever you want. It's 1 p.m. So, be judicious, but it is also a Thursday. So, challenge by choice. Second is get rid of what's distracting. So I know when I'm sitting at my computer, it's listening to a webinar, even if someone is as engaging as Dan Newman, I am still so tempted to go to my Slack, go to my email, make messages, write down notes, not pay attention. So if you know that you're going to be distracted by something, just like push it to the side. I give you permission to give yourself permission to say no to all that noise. And the third thing is figure out, get what you wanted out of this. So figure out for a hot second what you really want to get out of remote engagement and managing a virtual team or working virtually or working remotely. What do you want to get out of this? Like, take a hot second and say, before Dan says anything else, what did I come here for? And if you're like, I didn't come here for anything, I just signed up because it sounded cool. Well, figure out what you want to do, because I'm going to throw a bunch of stuff at you, but I want to make sure that you're getting what you need. And so as we're going through this, we're going to do plenty of interactivity. So you want to have your answers already queued up. So figure out why the heck are you here? Okay. So a little about me. I am the founder, and I also style myself as the chief learning whisperer of Learn to Scale. Learn to Scale is a coaching consulting business around helping people deliver high quality employee engagement. So I work a lot with HR talent professionals, employee engagement specialists, but also business leaders and organizations that are trying to find ways of engaging their employees. And we're in this remote virtual world. I have spent a lot of time, over a decade, doing remote teaching, remote training, remote workshops. So when COVID hit, I realized that I had a secret wheelhouse. Welcome to my wheelhouse. This is my wheelhouse. So I do stuff like this all the time. Yes, I have my ring light. Yes, I have my bottle of water there. And I've got my notes arranged in such a way. And I wave my arms a lot. And I use my microphone like a game show host. It's a condenser mic for those of you who are thinking about doing more remote work. Having a microphone that sounds great definitely changes the way that you impact your audience. So I like to use this as well. And I also have no shame about being over exuberant. So this is why I'm assuming you're here. And this is why, I asked you, why are you here? I'm assuming that you wanted to know how to better engage your team or organization. I'm assuming that you're maybe a little flummoxed. That's one of my favorite words this month, flummoxed on what you should be doing with a remote team and how to engage them. And ultimately, I think you care, and this is an assumption, you're here because you want to retain your best talent. If you engage your team, if you give them what they want, then they're more likely to stay and continue doing great, excellent work. There's a dollar value at the end of that journey. Turnover is expensive. So I'm assuming here that you want to kind of maximize some ROI on your talent. You want to retain your talent. Let's talk about virtual engagement. So here are the goals. You're going to be able to walk out of here being able to describe 3 activities. You're going to have a lot more, but you're definitely going to be able to walk out with 3 activities that drive excellent remote one-on-ones. In that, crafting an accountability loop that builds trust, and I'm going to say why trust is super duper important, and at least 5 different ways to engage remote employees. I'll give you plenty more, but if you walk out remembering this, then put up the victory banner. The agenda for what we're going to be covering, we're going to talk first about trust and how to make a remote culture that doesn't suck. We'll talk about better remote one-on-ones, accountability, especially when we're talking about behaviors in meetings. Then we're going to go into engaging remote employees and solving the right problems once you have all these options at the table, and open Q&A. As I said before, if you have questions, shout them out, drop them in the chat. If something, spur of the moment hits, please feel free. Interactivity keeps it exciting. Otherwise, I'm just talking to a monitor in my living room. The first piece of interactivity, this is a tool called Slido. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but Slido is an engagement platform where people can bring out their telephonic device or their web browser and live interact with a presentation. So let's do it. Go to slido.com and put in the code RENEW. And in there should pop up, if I've played my cards right and set this up right, this particular poll. The poll is, in your organization, do you know what your biggest problems are regarding your remote culture? So I'm assuming you have some kind of remote culture, you're going remote or you've seen remote. Do you know what your big problems are? Like you can say like, yep, that's my problem. Or you could say like, I think I know. Maybe it's like a kinda here. Or maybe you're like, I actually don't know. And it's anonymous, so you can say not really if it's a not really. But if you're in the kinda category, that's cool. We're at 63% of responses here saying kinda. Some are saying absolutely, and some are saying, I'm not sure. That's okay. That's why we're here, right? We're gonna move kinda from like kinda to we're pretty sure about what it is. Super. All right. We've got a bunch of kindas, absolutelys next, and then not really. That's cool. If you've ever sat in front of a computer, you kind of know that remote cultures are a bit of a challenge. And that's probably why a little bit of reason that you're here. So here's the promise that I'm promising to you as attendees to my webinar. You're going to walk out of here. You're going to have a pile of methods to drive remote engagement. And figuring out which of those methods is going to be number 1 on your list, that's like a webinar for another day, but you're going to walk out of here with a big long list of things that you can do. And it starts with trust. So trust is an invisible currency when you're dealing with a remote world. Trust really matters when you're in person, but definitely when remote, because it's so easy to not trust people when you don't see them. This is kind of like human need here. So there's famous management text, Patrick Lencioni's 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. Great standard seminal text. It's totally crushable in an evening, and you might be able to acquire it for free online, but you didn't hear that from me. So in that book, they say trust is the first dysfunction. Trust is knowing that when a team member does push you, they're doing it because they care about the team. That trust is a critical ingredient for all the other pieces. Now, if you're familiar with Agile, or you run an Agile shop, or you're like hanging out with a bunch of engineers, they care a lot about Agile. Well, in the manifesto, the Agile manifesto, which is a great read, not as crushable as 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, you build projects around motivated individuals. You want to give them the environment, the support they need, and trust them to get the job done. And I'm really hammering down on trust because all the other stuff in this webinar really is predicated on building trust. So this is my like little like call out here. If you ain't got trust, you ain't got everything else. If you want to have more engaged employees, it starts from a place of trust. You want people to be more accountable. They have to know that they're not going to get burned for saying that they failed. You want to up morale. They need to trust that they're in a team that cares about them and that their work matters. You want people to be more motivated, more innovative, et cetera. It starts from that baseline of trust. So as you're thinking about your virtual engagement and remote management, finding ways to maximize trust, you're going to be finding ways towards success. So we're going to have a little group discussion now. Get ready to play. Question number 1, if you give trust, what feelings do you have to prepare to experience? Now, you could do this in the chat if you want to like think about it, or if you just want to unmute yourself and chat live here, that'd be fun. But think about this of, you have somebody showing up for the first day at your organization and you say, hey, I'm going to give you the keys of the kingdom. You're going to have all of our secrets, all of our information, all of that power. What feelings do you or your organization have to prepare to experience in that hot moment? Chat it out or unmute yourself. Vulnerability, twice, right away. Bingo. What else? Have to prepare for skepticism. Yeah. Who comes in and says, yeah, I trust you wholeheartedly. Like, I've been on some bad dates. It's tough when you open that up. Feelings of the other person screwing things up. Yeah. If you give someone access to your entire code base of your software platform, whatever, you have to hope they're not a crazy person who's going to completely sink your business. That's or not even a crazy person, maybe just a well-intentioned person who doesn't know. That's scary. Fear. The wait and see attitude, pain, discomfort, embarrassment. Yeah. All of these things are things people don't usually seek out. So it's hard to want to just give trust extemporaneously. So now let's start thinking about like messaging here is how you're approaching this trust giving. So with this, employee showing up for their first day, they're saying, here's the keys of the kingdom. What message are you sending as a manager or a leader or a business to that person by saying, I trust you so much? What messages are you saying? Yes, active discussion.
People are shy on Zoom. That's a tough question.
Yeah, it's like a little org design, a little IO psychology here of, okay, they're capable, you believe in them, encouragement, psychological safety. Yes, we'll talk about psychological safety today. I saw a new term today that I thought was really great, psychological air. The idea that you can breathe and say things. We'll talk about that. You're part of the team. Yeah, this is really like pro-social messaging here. It's really demonstrating that this person is a valued person. This is awesome. Third question. Now, how do you identify if trust is an underlying issue on a remote team? What's your diagnostic? How do you figure that out? It might show up as symptoms, but what's the test here? All right, if you're seeing or hearing micromanagement, trust might be an issue. Someone saw my slide deck in advance. I feel like people don't figure that out, and that's the issue. Bingo. Ask yourself if you trust others or if you feel like you can speak your mind. Woo, yeah, there it is. That's psychological safety there. Excellent. How do you identify if trust is an underlying issue on a remote team? We said trust was foundational. So figuring out, is that the problem or is there something else here? Lack of communication. Nobody's communicating. There might be a trust problem. Yes, 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 yes. Cool. So one method that I wanted to talk about is one-on-ones. And one-on-ones are super duper useful, super duper important, but just straw poll here. Do you regularly do one-on-ones with your team, or does that happen at your organization? And now this is not a like, let me show off how smart I am kind of thing. It's like, if I asked your team member and I said, hey, does your team really do one-on-ones all the time? Would they raise their hand and say, yes, we do? Or they say, it happens here and there. Like, is it a regular thing? Like, is it in your calendars that happen regularly? If for those of you who never use the nonverbal feedback feature of Zoom, if you hop into, we have Q&A in there as well. Where's the Q&A thing? Whoops. We'll come back to that. Yeah. The nonverbal feature, you can do that on the participants tab. You can be like, hey, yeah. Or there's like a little reactions thing. I actually didn't even check to see if that's one of the features you have enabled. Is that one of the features you have enabled? EC virtual programs?
I don't
Nonverbal
know.
feedback?
I'm sorry about that.
No, it's fine. If not, oh, there is. All right. Thanks,
Where is
Jennifer.
it?
Yes.
Okay, the thumbs up. That's what I was like, I don't know how to raise hand myself. Well, we don't do one-on-ones, so.
Well, you didn't have to drop that in the webinar. This is getting recorded. We'll just snip this thing out. Sweet. All right. Thumbs up counts. Sweet. So, all right, you can put the hands down. You can put the thumbs down. I'm going to just get on my soapbox and say one-on-ones are unusually effective at identifying if trust is an underlying issue, but also building trust. And here's why. So it fosters regular communication and feedback. If you have a manager and a direct report, having one-on-ones on a regular basis, there is definitely a guaranteed time frame that you can talk. So having that regular communication and feedback is critical towards talking about things. Who'd have thunk? It helps recontextualize problems, explores different types of topics, and brainstorms solutions. If you're an individual contributor and you have a one-on-one with your manager, you've just doubled the brain power solving the problems you're trying to solve. So having that one-on-one is a chance to really think about things as a team and solve the different difficult types of problems you might be facing. And the third thing is, it's building relationships and trust. And relationships and trust, as I said before, is pretty critical towards remote management. So they're unusually effective, much more effective than the Winter Olympics. Sorry, I love the 30 Rock references. It allows you to be empathetic, either as an individual contributor, understanding where your manager is coming from, or as a manager, understanding where your individual contributor is like facing problems or looking at issues. So those one-on-ones, they're really effective at doing that. And now here's a bunch of good practices that you can use for one-on-ones. One, have them. Two, make sure they're regular. So the best practice that I've seen out in the industry is having one-on-ones once a week or every other week. If it's spaced out too much, then it becomes more of a status update rather than, a continuous problem solving or development. And if it's like every single day, then it's not really a one-on-one anymore. It becomes kind of like a status update meeting. If you are at an organization where there's a lot of change or a lot of variability or a lot of unknowns, one-on-ones more often are recommended because just the changing pace and nature. If you're at a place where it's kind of like stable, there's not a lot of change, then you can space it out more for like that 2-week frame. Best one-on-ones have collaborative agendas. It's seen as a partnership between the manager and the direct report, not as a power differential of the manager telling the direct report what to do. And having a collaborative agenda that says, how are you feeling? Maybe scale 1 to 5. The number is really great because then you can see their mood over the year and see like, at the end of the year, you get a lot of 2s. At the beginning of the year, it's a bunch of 5s. So numbers are helpful. What did you accomplish last week? What do you intend to accomplish this upcoming week? Is there anything you need help guidance on? And here are some updates from management or the rest of the team that I think matter to you. And the juicy part about having this be a collaborative agenda where this is pre-populated, it's going to save time in that one-on-one. If your one-on-one is just a status update, it's not an effective use of time. But as a manager, it's important to have that regular kind of pulse on what's going on, what problems are being solved, what's been done, what's still pending. So these questions are important to have on that regular recurring basis. I am a very timely person, and I believe that meetings that start and end on time are just, equitable, and fair meetings. I'm also super anal about time. But it shows respect to the individual that, if I'm a manager showing up late all the time, it doesn't really signal the same type of care that time is valuable. So that subconscious signaling is important, and it happens just by being timely. Having quarterly conversations about a career. You can drive that as an individual contributor or as a manager. You can say, hey, at this date, every quarter, we're going to talk about your career. And you step away from the noise of the chaos of your life and really talk a little about your own personal development and where you see yourself going. It's critical to document action items. We also want to be able to document praise or achievements. So this documentation in that agenda provides a point in time where you can say, I was doing these things. These are my follow-ups for this upcoming week. The praise and achievements is huge because at the end of the year, most of us have like those performance reviews you got to do. And it's so much easier if you write down the big wins over the year as they're happening than having to sit back and like go through your calendar from like beginning of January and was like, oh yeah, I did this great thing. And then you just put it in your report and it's not really that great. It's powerful to document it because it puts it onto paper and it makes it easier to do those annual reviews. And this is another kind of like trust, subconscious messaging here. If this is just a data dump, like if your one-on-ones are like, show up, here's my report, walk away, you're not building rapport, empathy, psychological safety. You got to really actually open up and be vulnerable here. And this is where that trust giving, if you give trust, then it starts creating the cycle of trust building, which allows you to really engage people, it allows them to really showcase what they're doing, what problems they're facing, etc. What questions do we have right now? Any questions so far?
Someone actually just direct messaged me and asked if we could get the slides after.
Totes for goats.
Nice. We got them for you.
You got it. Cool. What other questions do we have so far? If not, then that's okay. We'll have Q&A time later. Okay, so just checking in here. What kind of things have you learned through one-on-one conversations that wasn't just like numbers, but like things you may have learned that you might not have learned if you weren't in a one-on-one? So this is again at slido.com. Or if you have your phone, you can actually like wave it at the screen and take that QR code and put in the code RENEW, RENEW. And in there, it's an open response. So what kind of things have you learned through one-on-one conversations with a team? Some things you may have learned. Favorite foods. That Dan's dog's name is Roman noodles. That they are going to bake a cake this weekend. Competitive intelligence. Ooh, financial status of the company. Best practices. Yeah. I had a manager once that talked about the psychology of iterative development and that individual contributors are so close to the action. They make these small incremental improvements that they can't really like label right off the bat, but they aggregate over time, which is how individual contributors become experts because they keep on iterating and practicing, et cetera. And if you're a manager like peeking in here, you may not know that this person came up with a billion best practices because they've been hacking at it so many times. And that's another one of the cool things you can learn from one-on-ones. Okay, meeting a lot of pets that your team exists. Kudos. Personal issues, that one of the team members is feeling burnt out, how they're handling work-life balance, meeting a bunch of children, especially this work from home life. You know, you see someone run by in the background. I put my dog in a crate right now because he would run in here and he'd bark and he'd want to be part of the show. New things to get involved with outside work, employee interpersonal issues. Yeah. All of that, I'm going to bet, came from some level of trust, is that they felt open and honest to say like, you know, I'm not feeling so great. And that impacts engagement, that impacts retention, that impacts so many different things. Thank you. Thank you for your responses. Okay. I'm going to give you two tools. I love tech tools and I love a whole bunch of different toys that you can use to facilitate this. So I'm a huge fan of 15.5 and Sabre. So 15.5 is a platform that kind of facilitates the one-on-one conversations. I actually use it with my coaching clients where every other week it sends them this kind of like little survey, a little form, a little report. They answer a bunch of questions and then it gets piped to me. And then I can see what's going on. I can make comments on the feedback that they provided. And it helps us clarify our one-on-one agendas. So when we meet for our coaching calls, We have like the top tips of things that we actually need to discuss versus, oh, here's a link to that article that you asked about. So 15.5 has a bunch of other bells and whistles, but that's the way I primarily use it right now. And Sabre is another cool tool because it's kind of like a coaching sidekick, where as a manager, you might be having a one-on-one with your direct report who says like, I have a problem with blankety blank. And then Sabre has pre-built questions that says like, oh, they mentioned blankety blank. Here are some next follow-up questions that you can ask. Here's some things to listen for. And then it kind of like pipes you to more professional development resources to help you as a coach. So 2 tools, I think they're neat. Figure out, share it. We're now going to move into accountability because remote work, I don't know about you, it makes me agitated and stressed because I have no idea what the heck everyone else is doing. If I don't see people like physically working, I have no idea if they're working. So accountability is this like reasonable thing you worry about. And when talking to managers, when talking to teams about remote engagement, what was really clear to me is that there are 4 flavors of in-person behavior that need to be adapted for remote work. And so really analyzing what's happening at these 4 stages. So someone takes ownership for tasks. Well, that's really a task setting ritual. Someone completes a task. What is their completion behavior? How do they say that they did it? You get feedback. Well, how are the people supposed to do feedback in the remote world? Then we're going to talk about communication channels. And then finally, checking in. It's so easy to walk by someone's desk when you're in the office. Well, we got to turn those into now virtual touch points. So let me go through each one of these 4 and some things that I've seen and some ideas to get you going. Pile of ideas. That was the promise. Task setting rituals. So this is saying like, I will do the task. So a daily stand-up where the team comes together, it could be a small sub-team or it could be a bigger team, depending on how big your team is, and say like, these are the things I'm working on today. Pretty straightforward. It's just kind of a quick report out. It's a little ritual. It happens every day. It's your daily stand-up. Another thing that you could do is a spotlight. So I've worked with a number of sales teams, and a spotlight is a good way of encouraging people to take initiative, but also sharing some best practices around the team. So really good spotlights usually have each individual rep or participant say, here's where I'm at. Here's my goals for today. Here's what I intend to accomplish. Here's my sales targets or the things that I'm looking for. And also here's one thing that I learned yesterday. And here's my big goal for the week. And everyone has to stand up in front of their peers and basically say, here's where I'm at with my goals and here's where I intend to go. And it's also an opportunity to kind of like voice, here are the roadblocks or things that I'm worried about to help me achieve my goals. Spotlight. Third, morning address. If you have like a leader or a manager wants to kind of like get people revved up, but also kind of keep people in the loop as to what's happening, really helpful with organizations that are going through a lot of change is finding ways that there's a regular morning address that says, here's what's going on in the business. Here's what you need to know. Reporters might be coming. Here's your talking points. Here's who you talk to. And if you do that every single day or every week, it starts to become a ritual. And finally, if you're a project management fueled organization, having a project kickoff is kind of like project best practice here. A way of saying like, these are the tasks that each person will do. And if you have questions throughout this, just like drop it in the chat. Or if you have a best practice, feel free to drop it in the chat too. Task completion behavior. How do you know when the thing is done? So when I was in the office and then also now remote, there's this tool called Hoopla. It's a really cool sales engagement tool that, one of the features is this news flash. And a news flash goes up and says like, a sales rep closed a deal. Here's how much. Here's who the client was. Cool. And it rings like a gong on all the shared speakers or shared screens to indicate to everyone that somebody hit a goal. And the whole purpose of this is that there is some signal that a task was completed. The social pressure then is some people are completing their tasks. I should stay motivated and continue completing my tasks too. But it's also a way of celebrating someone. It's like, hey, this person just hit President's Club. Let me send them a note. Slack messages, great way of saying, I did the thing. You can also put in chat bots to your Slack that automate some of the message sending. I worked with a customer success team that when a problem incident came up, then it automatically chatted out, there's the problem incident, this is the person who's handling it. And then when the problem incident was resolved, so that the overseers, the managers could see the problems are coming up and they're being knocked down. I'm a big fan of Asana. It's a great project management tool. It has a little checkbox. When you complete a task, a unicorn flies across the screen. It feels really good. Like, this feeling thing matters. Project Retro, the other side of the project kickoff for your project management groups. And that spotlight I mentioned before, having them say, this is what I did yesterday. Just showcasing to the team, here's what I did, here's what happened. Third, virtual communication channels. And the asterisk to all of these is designating what is getting communicated in which channel. So when you're virtual, it's very easy to expect people to communicate in a particular fashion. And no one else may get that memo. And so being explicit as an organization that, you know, project completion is being communicated over email because that's how we track things here. Or our project management tool is where all of our project announcements happen. So make sure it happens there. So you may send emails, you may send Slacks and chats, you might have team meetings. Those are all kind of like regular communications you probably use today. Anonymous surveys, it's important to then also have virtual communication where you get feedback as an org that something may be working, something not be working. There's a split decision on whether anonymous surveys are good because it allows people to say things they may not normally say, which could be great, or it could be really dirty. So styling that anonymous survey and how the organization accepts it will determine how useful that anonymous survey will totally be. Pulse survey is the non-anonymous version of that. Pulse survey is kind of like, in the HR talent engagement space, the kind of like modern engagement survey philosophy is something like quarterly pulse surveys where you ask maybe 2 or 3 questions on a quarterly basis. And then at the end of the year, you have a longer, more comprehensive, holistic employee engagement survey that keeps you from over surveying your people, but it gives pretty regular communication back to HR or executives about what the health of the organization is looking like. And then social events. I mean, don't diss on social events. You probably get a lot of good news and good information at social events. And that's where people make, you know, relationships. And just because you're virtual, don't mean they ain't going to be less social. Now, they might be zoomed out, and you might not want to have just another Zoom meeting at 5 p.m. on a Thursday and say, bring your whiskey. But finding other ways of engaging people in social arenas. I have a bunch of list of ideas. Don't let me forget. I'm going to tell you about the trivia game I'm doing on Friday. Don't let me forget. Finally, virtual touch points. I want to blow through these last few points. So virtual touch points, making sure that there's regular expected places where people can communicate. So recurring project sync meetings. If you're working on a project, set your next meeting, like have that be like a habit, because having that next meeting is important to build the rapport over a longer period of time. Don't just like meet ad hoc. Also, it's really hard to organize schedules. So let's just put it in advance. Those one-on-ones, really hold them sacred. That's going to be one of your best drivers of building trust as an organization. Virtual coffee breaks or social breaks, scheduling those out and just saying like, hey, this is a chance for us to not talk about work. Some organizations have like coffee hour where they're not allowed to talk about work and they just sit and drink coffee together. There's another organization that has no Zoom Mondays, Zoomless Mondays. I'm a fan of the meatless Mondays where there's no meetings on Mondays, but you can't win it all. And then finally, project milestones. Whenever you're working on a project, you should have some like bright lines as to when you've accomplished phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and find, you know, there are opportunities to celebrate. I see a department recently did a virtual escape room. I did a virtual escape room too. It was super duper good. Like I did a virtual escape room with this organization called Life Labs, and they broke like 100 some odd people into groups of 5. They downloaded a PowerPoint that was kind of like a choose your own adventure. And it was practicing feedback. It was so cute. It was super duper cute. Life Labs, check it out. Great pro dev organization. Okay, so the dose is the poison. If you overdose on accountability, it becomes micromanagement. So whoever saw my deck before, yep, this is the slide I'm talking about. So if you hear these one-liners, just checking in on this, before it's due. Can you CC me on that? Here's how I would do this before being asked, saying, you know what, don't worry, just let me do this. Or mentally logging when someone's online or offline. These are signs, one, of lack of trust, but two, of micromanagement. If you are actually genuinely worried that your team cannot perform without you micromanaging them, then there's a deeper issue that you want to be addressing here. Is it that they don't have the skills? They don't have the capability? They don't have the systems? They don't have the structure? Do you not trust them? Have they not demonstrated themselves? Those are the problems worth solving, not the, can you just CC me on this? And then you have a pile of emails in your inbox. And then you go back to your direct report when they send an email that wasn't quite up to your specifications, and then they hate you. So just something to think about when you're doing the accountability stuff. So, all right, team participation here. What's one thing that you believe will improve accountability for your team? You may have the power to do it, you may not, but hey, what do you think is, or you could just chat to everyone. It doesn't have to be all panelists, simply attendees. I have this styled, for the webinar plugin. What's one thing you think will improve it? Kind of like pie in the sky. Like, what do you think would make things more accountable here? Safe to make a mistake and correct it on their own. Yeah. More goal setting. Yeah. I love goals. I have a goal infographic. If you remind me afterwards, I can pass it along. I made a goal infographic with my accountability buddies. Positive reinforcement. Yes. Yeah. These all things great to build accountability. What else? There's more people here that are multitasking during this webinar. I know you're doing it. Stop, get out of your email. Weekly check-in on the personal goals. Yeah, rewards and celebrations. Yes, we'll be talking about that. Yes, 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 yes. Cool. Anything else? Anything you think will improve accountability on your team? This is my happy place. I also love doing these webinars because it helps me get steps, because I like pace a lot. So I'm just getting my steps in here. Cool. Keep thinking about it. The world is your oyster. So let's talk about engagement strategies. Now, I put this near like the latter half of the deck because these, in the grand scheme of things, are gimmicks. These are flash in the pan things that are really fun to organize and they're really fun to participate in, but they don't necessarily, in and of themselves, change how people are engaged in a virtual world. They are great things. Not saying gimmicks are bad, but recognizing that planning one event is not going to make your team suddenly click and gel. It's a series of events or a series of choices, plus all of the trust building that we covered before, that's really going to move the dial somewhere. The hard work is the boring stuff. This is the fun stuff. But let's talk about the fun stuff. So gratitude is a great way of building positive mood as well as just straight up engagement. Starting your team meetings with a little gratitude, saying like, this is one thing I'm grateful for, puts everyone in a totally different mindset when they start that meeting. Even if it's going to be a depressing meeting, being grateful that they have the opportunity to wear their Zoom pants is a wonderful, wonderful world. I came recently across this software called Tribute.co, and it allows you to create it's basically like a video mixer of people saying nice things about people. And it allows you to aggregate a bunch of people saying, thanks, Bob, for all the great work you did on whatever, or, oh my gosh, I'm so thankful for it. It makes like this customized video about an individual or an organization. It's super duper cute. Just take a look at it and you'll be like, oh my gosh, this is so cute. Anniversaries and birthdays, they are gifts. They are opportunities. They are excuses to do something really nice. If you just want to write a handwritten card and mail it to your remote employee, that freaking matters because nobody gets good mail. So getting a card on your birthday from someone on your team, that's super nice. Anniversaries, like a 1-year anniversary, 2-year, 5-year, are also great reasons to celebrate someone and recognize them. You can make a donation to a charity in their name. You can send them a gift card for food. saying like, order yourself out lunch today. You could do something like, a cake or a plaque. It's like, whatever. I have seen some organizations for like big milestones, like maybe a 7-year anniversary, send them on a sabbatical. Say like, hey, for the next like 6 weeks, this isn't a vacation. This is a paid sabbatical for you to go pursue whatever the heck you've always wanted to pursue. 7 years is a long time at an organization nowadays. So on that 7-year anniversary, getting kind of like the blessing to go out and just pursue your passion and know that your job's waiting for you when you come back. Talk about recognition, right? Shared music playlist, creating a Spotify account for the team, or just saying like, if you have a playlist you want to play, drop a link into the team chat and, someone's going to be the DJ for a day. Remote events. There are plenty of remote events. The thing I said, remember down, I am partaking tomorrow in a trivia game put on by the organization Atlas Obscura, where it's a very cool website. They have a lot of cool geography, fun things. But they're doing a virtual trivia night on Friday. So I'm going to do it with some friends. I was like, hey, you want to do trivia? So we're going to do trivia. Show and tell day. Encourage people to bring something that demonstrates their home, their identity, showcase it to the team. If you have younger or just a video game focused culture, have people share their video game handles and, have a team meeting in Red Dead Redemption 2, which the New York Times reported on, and people are having business meetings in virtual game worlds. For real. For real. You could do something like the Great Nashville Bake Off, where maybe you send out the same recipe to everyone and then you showcase your baked good. I'm definitely deep into the Great British Baking Show right now. So maybe you just take a recipe from there and make something like a mirror cake. And the woofing hour, if there's maybe a time of the week, everyone just brings out their pets. It's like, here's my pet. And if you don't have a pet, make a sock puppet and be like, this is my pet, and tell a story about the sock puppet. And, hold a meeting as their sock puppet. Who cares? It's silly. It's fun. It's engaging. And finally, curating social spaces. I am a huge fan of the always more Slack channels philosophy. So make a Slack channel for people who love badminton. Make a Slack channel for just screaming, where people can just like chat out, like make a Slack channel for people who forget to water their plants as a reminder channel to water your plants. Like always more Slack channels. Cool. So there's tons of really cool ideas out there. I certainly can feed you more ideas, but we do have 15 minutes left roughly. And so here's the promise. Do you now have a pile of methods to drive remote engagement? I hope so. Here's all the things that we covered. Establishing or reestablishing trust, regular and timely one-on-ones, collaborative one-on-one agendas, tools like 15 Fiber Saber, quarterly career conversations, documenting action items and praise, task setting ritual, task setting behaviors, virtual communication channels, virtual touch points, reducing micromanagement, implementing regular gratitude, celebrating auspicious events, shared playlists, social events, and virtual social spaces. Wow, that's a lot of stuff. Yes, we will share this deck out afterwards. So just check here because you didn't know how to engage your team or organization. You're a little flummoxed on what you should be doing. You wanted to retain your best talent. If this is still the case, I hope you got what you came for. Here's something that I wanted to also share, that now that you've got a pile of things, I work with a lot of HR and talent professionals who solve the wrong problems all the time. They're like, we're going to do a pizza night. It's going to be great. But the problem was their managers don't know how to have one-on-ones. Or, we're going to make onboarding really great, but they don't have a way of getting equipment to the new hires. So I took a lot of those conversations and put it into a course. So if you now are like, sweet, we got all this stuff, but we don't know which problem to solve, then the quick and dirty gap analysis is the course for you. It's designed to help you quickly and effectively do that kind of prioritization and ranking. It's from an employee engagement space, because that's clearly what I care about. Because you're here, half off, woohoo, of that particular program. I'm actually doing a webinar next week where I'm going to be going more into a gap analysis. So again, if you like what I'm picking up, if you're picking up what I'm putting down, I'm doing a free webinar next week around doing a gap analysis, and I'm joined by 2 other rockstar HR professionals about what's your number 1 HR investment for 2021. And if you are an HRE person, this next thing is totally for you. So all of this stuff we cover in the employee engagement cohort. It's really a community of professional development to help HR, talent development, experienced professionals just blow the socks off employee engagement. It covers that gap analysis plus all the other pieces in the blueprint, as well as some goal setting and group coaching where we woodshop your problems live together. It's very exciting. That's at bit.ly/engagement awaits. If you want to hear more about it, just hit me up. And that's the show. I drink a lot of coffee, like I said. Cool. Now, open Q&A. Let's talk. What's going on? How can I help?
Yeah, let's have folks just unmute themselves to ask their question.
Or if they're like in a team meeting right now and they're like half paying attention to their meeting and half watching this webinar.
You can chat it in and I'll read it as if I'm them. I'll do like a whole impersonation if I know you.
Actually, I have a question, Dan.
Yes.
First, this was wonderful, really informative. I don't lead a team. However, I'm a facilitator, so I hear a lot of what's going on other teams, people that attend the trainings that I do. One of the issues that they're having is it's their manager that isn't doing the one-on-ones. It's their manager that maybe, because most managers are new to remote management. So what can these employees do that I'm seeing as individual contributors to help their managers? How can they manage up and really help their managers understand what these individual contributors need?
That's a great question, because managing up is really critical when, and I'm actually seeing this a lot more in organizations now, because usually individual contributors that I'm speaking to are a little bit younger in their career. They also tend to be a lot more tech savvy. So they understand this virtual medium a little bit more than maybe their managers who are trying to grapple with it. And so the managing up is kind of dicey, because now you've got these younger professionals who are living in Slack and Zoom already, working with managers who are understanding the tools, but also these younger folks, they don't have the political chops to necessarily influence up, which is tricky wicky. And I had to spend many years in higher ed to figure out how to influence people to listen to what I wanted to say. I think the best way to kind of approach it in those situations is the individual contributor coming to the manager and just kind of offering the opportunity to talk about how you're working together. It could be super non-confrontational. It's just kind of an open, hey, I went to this weird webinar with this guy named Dan, and he came up with these crazy ideas. I thought I'd run them by you and see, do any of these sound good to you? And kind of just saying it, offering it up as an opportunity for the manager to change, especially if the individual contributor is trying to influence that manager. There's a lot more to it. I mean, like, that's a webinar unto itself, things about using the feedback systems and how do you communicate tactfully so that change can actually happen. And also kind of when to just, burn down the dock and sail away if the organization isn't going to be willing to change with the times. An individual, you only have so much time on this planet. And if you can find another job, which I know this work environment is tricky to figure that out, it might not be a great organization for their ongoing continued professional development. And that might be the reality. I don't know, it's kind of a downer way to end a question answer, but I saw Woody unmuted himself. Let's talk to somebody else.
Yeah, Woody has a question.
Well, I have a question. So when do you know you have too many platforms of ways to communicate, be it Slack, then HubSpot, then Dropbox, and things get kind of like, where are they and where do you find things? And people forget how to communicate. And one of the other things I find with that is like, oh, I did my job. I sent it off in an email or I put it somewhere, and then you feel like that job's done. How do you kind of keep that engagement good, but also accountable and trackable without getting sense?
Excellent question. I did an annual report for myself, and I realized I use 30 different technologies just for my own business with myself. Like, I don't even know where I put notes anymore. So you could approach it from a product perspective, like seeing communication as a product. And what do you do when you're a product manager? You talk to your customers. So talking to your employees of which communication models are they using the most, what's most comfortable for them, what allows them to be most efficient, and then styling your operations to scale up from those customer preferences. So you can go to your team and say, like, how do you want to talk about deal flow or updates to conversations? And they say, well, I like chatting my manager over Slack, but I always go to my CRM like HubSpot or Salesforce to look at the deals that are coming through. Then you say like, cool, all right, so it seems that you actually are logging information in the CRM. What if everyone did that? And they said, yeah, that'd be super handy. Then that starts to inform your policy as an organization. That's one way of looking at it. It's like the product research. The other side is your tech stack and what's going to have the most synergy with all the different tools. So if your CRM is the source of truth and that integrates to all the other, business functions, then they better be communicating in that CRM. And then you crack the whip and you have your sales ops or your revenue ops person, yell at them and say, put your stuff into the CRM. It doesn't count if it's not in there. And then that's because everything else cascades off of that. Somehow in your organization, you need to have a source of truth for the different communications that you're going to talk about. So the virtual touch points, clarifying where does information have to be exchanged, where is it going to be put, and making sure that what is getting communicated in which medium. And you could do that team by team. You could do that as an org wide. I don't know how big your team is, but just get everyone on the same page and saying we can't be talking in 12 different directions.
Yeah, I've also found it a problem when you have some people that are at their desk on a regular basis in front of a computer, and those that are on the go or out in the field, and then the expectations are a little bit different about the timing and how much information you put in there and so forth. So if you got any best practices or anybody else does on that.
Yeah, I mean, there's a great opportunity there for some workflow analysis. So if you got people out in the field, maybe, if you're doing outside sales, and they need to log their conversations and they're sitting on their phone while driving from place to place, then do they have a time of the day that they then recap all the important information? Or can you style the CRM or the system that they're putting that information in to be super easy for your remote people or your mobile people to use? And then for your people on the desktop, finding a way that their integrations and their information flows into the same little holes. Ultimately, it's going to guide your decision making. So whoever's making the biggest decisions needs to have the information in the format that matters most to them.
Great. Good advice.
What other questions do folks have?
Dun, 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 dun. If you join the Atlas Obscura trivia game on Friday, then we'll compete there.
Oh, check this out. I have the Atlas Obscura book.
Nice. Yeah, it's like $7 trivia. I have no idea how they're going to run it. I've done online trivia like once or twice, but I don't know how they're going to do it tomorrow. What other questions do you all have?
What kind of coffee do you drink to keep you going at 1 o'clock in the afternoon like this?
So I typically have like 1.5 to 2 cups of coffee to start the day. And then if I'm lucky, I can get a little meditation in right around the lunch hour. And then I usually walk my dog right after lunch because my brain's already dead at, the after lunch hour. So I walk the dog. So I got the caffeine, I got the mindfulness, and I got the dog activity.
I'm kind of wondering to that same extent, when you are trying to keep yourself engaged and enthusiastic in your work environment, do you have any sort of tips to like remind yourself to stay engaged in that meeting or engaged in that workshop and not let yourself sort of like zone out?
Yeah. So there's a Zig Ziglar quote that says, motivation is like bathing. That's why we recommend it daily. And finding ways to create reasons to celebrate, to create milestones, and finding ways to find some joy in the life that you're living and the work that you're doing. So there's a few things. And actually, now that you mention it, I created an infographic. And again, email me and I'll send it to you about doing self-defining memories and self-defining future projections. There's some pretty wacky research out there that if you stop and you just reflect on the things that made you who you are today and where you want to go in life, you just tend to actually enjoy life more. And when you enjoy life more and you feel like you have more control, you're more motivated in the things you're actually doing because you see where it's going. Practically speaking, having a career path, having a milestone, having key performance indicators of Why the heck are we having this meeting? Oh, because it's helping us reach this particular target, which will allow us to do this, which means something to me in this kind of capacity. Those types of goals and milestones, that's where one-on-ones really help, because it's a chance to like zoom out of the fires and say like, these are the problems. Now, if you're having meetings that you just want to blow your brains out in because it's just terrible meetings, there might be a question here is, do we even need to have these flipping meetings? I have a whole set of slides in a deck similar to this about effective remote meetings, and a lot of meetings don't need to happen. Having meaningful meetings when you're remote is key, because you can kind of like skirt by when you like bump into each other in the hallway and then you go to a meeting. But when you're just sitting in front of your screen all day and it's just zapping the energy out of you, yeah, get rid of the meetings that don't matter and spend time on the things that do. Hopefully that's helpful.
Thank you.
Someone asked in the chat what you would do if your boss is micromanaging you all the time. I'm guessing this is just micromanagement in the remote world. And kind of, how do you solve that, Dan?
I mean, I don't recommend spitting in their eye. I recommend a tactful, vulnerable conversation about the impact of their actions. Actually, so there's a technique that I use when delivering feedback, and it's the situation behavior impact model, SBI. And it's a good way of having a non-confrontational way of addressing an issue. So situation behavior impact is what it is. You describe a situation. So yesterday at the team meeting, I said this, and then you said that. Behavior. The behavior that I observed was you used an elevated tone of voice and directed your attention at me and called me by my name. The impact it had on me, and then you say the impact, and it's self impact. The impact it had on me was that it made me feel like my opinion didn't matter in the context of this meeting. And so situation behavior impact is a good way of addressing discrete behaviors because it externalizes the behavior. It makes it a thing that they can change. They're not the failure, the behavior is the failure. And so SBI allows you to address those micromanagement behaviors. If they're asking you like, hey, I noticed you weren't online yesterday. You address that comment right there. Say like, hey, I noticed that, there's a situation you said I wasn't online yesterday. And it came across as an email, which I tend to take with, a level of urgency. And the impact it had on me was it made me question whether I was allowed to turn off my Slack notifications so I could focus on the project that I was working on. It made me feel like I couldn't fully focus on that particular work. What do you say to that? And you're not saying they're a failure or they're micromanaging you, but you're addressing the behavior. Yeah, not allowed to turn off Slack. Hey, if you want to throw some studies at them saying that micromanagement and Slack things that distract you reduce your productivity, just say, sure, I can leave Slack on, if you're okay with like a 17% reduced productivity, if that's okay with you. No, don't say that. That's a little snarky, but yeah, okay. If you're looking for work at some point, just hit me up and I'll refer you out to someone.
Awesome. Well, we're at 2, unless there's like a really pressing question left.
You can email me. My email is dan@learntoscale.us. It's really complicated, dan@learntoscale. You can also visit my website. You can set up chats with me. This is clearly my passion, so I'm happy to just talk with people about it.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Dan. Thank you to everyone who came. I'm going to send a follow-up email with this recording and then Dan's information and email and all that good stuff. Appreciate you all. Bye, everyone.
Have a great rest of your day.